Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Racha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of 1 Kings, the 4th chapter. And as we saw in the 3rd chapter, as King Solomon had that dream, I believe he was on Gibeon, where the Lord came to him and asked him, what it is that he would want, or that he wanted, and he requested wisdom, right, which ended up pleasing the Lord so much that he gave him, an abundance of wisdom in addition to the other things, right, riches and so on. And we saw a display of that, right, when he was able to judge between the two harlots as to who's the living baby between the two of them was. Okay, so here we are, Solomon, 1 Kings, the 4th chapter. And this mainly goes into a bit of logistics might be the right word. And the order and the setup of King Solomon's government, so to speak, right? So 1 Kings 4:1. So King Solomon was king over all Israel. And these were the princes which he had. Azariah, the son of Zadok the priest. And these princes are like you could call them officers, but they're more like high positions, right? Individuals that were put in high positions to have authority, right, over certain matters. So you had Azariah, the son of Zadok the priest. You had Elihoreph and Ahiah, the sons of Shisha, scribes. Jehoshaphat, the son of Ahilud, the recorder. So you had the scribes, right, which were they would keep records of certain things, and similar to the recorder, but the recorder was more of a like a journalist. You would say, right, who records the events, and keeps it all written down, right, or noted somewhere to be at a later point referred back to. So that's where you have records from. And Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, was over the host, meaning the army. And Zadok and Abiathar were the priests. And Azariah, the son of Nathan, was over the officers. And Zabud, the son of Nathan, was principal officer and the king's friend. Now, it could be that this Nathan could be the same Nathan that the prophet, right, the prophet that communicated with David, right, lack of a better word or term there. So anyway, one of his sons here was over the officers, right, because it's like a little hierarchy for order's sake. And then another one of his sons was one of the principal officers, so one of the top dogs in there, as it says, the king's friend. So he must have been close with Solomon. And Ahishar was over the household, right? So any matters concerning the estate, the house, whatever that needed to be taken care of, Ahishar was the go-to for that. And Adoniram, the son of Abda, was over the tribute. And in here, when you go into the tribute, it actually goes into more of the forced labor, to put it in, candidly. Let's take a look here. So you have the word mas. It says a gang or body of forced laborers. Right now, as we know, in order for King Solomon to be able to actually build and complete the things that he set out to build, the temple, his own house, you needed labor. So in this case, what happened was there was almost like a tax that was enforced in the form of a manual labor. That's why here it's referred to as tribute. So you would have a certain body of individuals that would, be required to, be the bodies, right, that would perform this work. So one example, which it might not be a one-to-one example, but close enough, you can imagine maybe a certain country that requires their males, once they hit a certain age, to serve in the military for maybe X amount of years. So in this case, King Solomon had this levy, right, or this tributary labor in which the people had to provide men who would then do these jobs, and then he had one that would oversee that. So that's why you see the term here like taskmaster, and so on. So and the individual in charge of this, or who headed this, was Adoniram. Now, this was actually one of the things that Samuel warned Israel about when they requested for a king. So, is what it is, comes with the territory. Verse 7, and Solomon had 12 officers over all Israel, which provided victuals for the king and his household. Victuals being food, right? Provisions. Each man his month in a year made provision. So there's 12 officers set over all Israel, one in each region, and each of them had, like, for 1 month of the year, they would provide victuals or food or provisions for King Solomon's household, because remember, his household was large. And so and it'll go into the records of his daily provisions and stuff, but they were to basically provide that for that month. Verse 8, and these are their names. Salakia, let me read that again. And Solomon had 12 officers over all Israel, which provided victuals for the king and his household. Each man his month in a year made provision. And these are their names. The son of Hur in Mount Ephraim, so that's where he was. The son of Dekar in Makaz, and in Shaalbim, and Beth Shemesh, and Elon Beth Hanan. The son of Hesed in Aruboth. To him pertained Soko and all the land of Hepher. The son of Abinadab in all the region of Dor, which had Taphath, the daughter of Solomon, to wife. So this Abinadab which was one of the princes, right, or officers in the charge of one particular region here, was also the son-in-law of King Solomon here, right? And these names of these places, these are all regions within the territory of Israel, though now it'd be a little harder to identify exactly where they were, because when you even go on Google Maps, Google Images, you look up these places, most of them are approximations, except for the very well-known areas that carried on throughout history, in particular more recent history. Those, it's easier to sort of get an estimation as to where this region would be, like Jerusalem, for example. Anyway, verse 12, Ba'anah, the son of Ahilud, to him pertained Ta'anak and Megiddo and all Bethshean, which is by Zartanah, beneath Jezreel, from Bethshean to Abel Meholah, even on to the place that is beyond Jokneam. The son of Geber in Ramoth Gilead, to him pertained the towns of Jair, the son of Manasseh, which are in Gilead. To him also pertained the region of Argob, which is in Bashan, 80 great cities with walls and brazen bars. So once again, it's describing the officers that were in charge of the different regions and which regions they had control or rule or charge over. Ahinadab, the son of Iddo, had Mahanaim. Ahimaaz was in Naphtali. He also took Basmath, the daughter of Solomon, to wife, so another son-in-law of Solomon. Ba'anah, the son of Hushai, was in Asher and in Aloth. Jehoshaphat, the son of Paruah, in Issachar. Shimei, the son of Elah, in Benjamin. Geber, the son of Uri, was in the country of Gilead, in the country of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and of Og, king of Bashan. And he was the only officer which was in the land. Judah and Israel were many, as the sand which is by the sea in multitude, eating and drinking and making merry. So after it describes the different officers, right, and it goes into sort of like the state of the condition of the nation at this time, with King Solomon being in power. Verse 21, and Solomon reigned over all kingdoms from the river onto the land of the Philistines. Now, what this means is not just let me actually pull up a map here. Let's see, Solomon's reign. Let's take a look at images. Okay, so let's just do King Solomon's Empire map. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so I guess this should do. Yeah, these are pretty good ones. So let's see, I'll just go with this one here. We zoom in a little bit more. All right, so we can see here, this region is pretty sizable, right? Because it goes all the way. When you read, it says from the river onto the land of the Philistines. Now the river is referring to the Euphrates. So there was the eastern border, which is all the way up to the Euphrates, and then you had on the west all the way up to the border of the coast, right, bordering the Mediterranean. And in this case, it would be like the Gaza Strip, like on the west, and then the Euphrates River, like on the east. That's why you see this here. Now you may wonder why is this line sort of here and not just, why doesn't it expand this way to the right? And that's because, as you can see here, it says desert. This wasn't like let's just say like human pathways, right? At this point over here is more like mountains, deserts, sand. So nothing was really here. More so, this I believe was one of the roads. Forget which one was exactly. There was one of them which was the King's Highway, and there was one, might have been this one, and then you had the Via Maris, which is the way by the sea over on this side. Long story short, Solomon had dominion over this region here. Now you'll notice it says here, over all the kingdoms from the river onto the land of the Philistines and onto the border of Egypt, right? So that's why it comes all the way down here. They brought presents and served Solomon all the days of his life. And Solomon's provision for one day was 30 measures of fine flour and 60 measures of meal, 10 fat oxen and 20 oxen out of the pastures. So you can get a sense here that the food that King Solomon was eating wasn't like today. You go grocery shopping, you go and get some beef, you get some lamb, you get some chicken. It's typically frozen so it can be preserved, and then you bring it back, you store it in your freezer. When you're ready to make it, take it out, defrost it or whatnot, and then prepare it. Back then, the meat was fresh, right? The fat oxen, this wasn't like frozen pieces that they were bringing here. No, these were live, right? You get them live, make it that same day. That's why this was his daily provision, and that's a lot. But once again, it's not just King Solomon alone that's eating this, right? Remember, he had sons or son-in-laws and sons, right? Rehoboam was one of his sons. He also had daughters. He also had servants, the families of like his in-laws, and so at his household was pretty large, as expected of a king, and that's why the provision was so much. Continuing, 10 fat oxen and 20 oxen out of the pastures, and 100 sheep beside harts, so like deers, roes, gazelles, and roebucks, and fallow deer and fatted fowl. For he had dominion over all the region on this side the river. So this side the river would be the west of the Euphrates River, from Tipsah even onto Azah. And Azah is another way of saying Gaza. Over all the kings on this side the river. You see that? So all those kingdoms, Syria, all Egypt, all those, they were all subdued, remember, during the time of King David, leading to that peaceful reign for King Solomon. And he had peace on all sides round about him. All right, that included the Moabites, the Ammonites, they were all subject unto us. And Judah and Israel dwelled safely, every man under his vine and under his fig tree, from Dan even to Beersheba, all the days of Solomon. And Solomon had 40,000 stalls of horses for his chariots, and 12,000 horsemen. And those officers provided victual for King Solomon, and for all that came on to King Solomon's table. Every man in his month, they lacked nothing. So he had definitely a lot of horses. And the ones, remember, the officers that provided the victuals, as we're reading here, they were on point with it. Now, I believe it's in the book of Josephus that it mentions that when it goes into Solomon's glory, I think it was that the guards of King Solomon, with their afros, they used to have like this gold dust that would be sprinkled in their hair that gave it sort of like a golden glow or shine. Similar to, like, for those that watch Dragon Ball Z, for example, the concept of like a Super Saiyan, right? Where they have that, their hair goes all golden and, shiny and all of that. Anyway, I believe that's in the book of Josephus. So verse 28, it says, barley also and straw for the horses and dromedaries brought they. And dromedaries, right, when you go into it, they generalize it as like some swift animal here. Could be a mule, could be something along those lines. But as a matter of fact, I think there is, let me see. There is another, here it is. Yeah, Jeremiah 2:23, you have the word dromedary there as well. And last time I checked, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was like a camel. Could be wrong, but let's see. What do we have here? Yeah, a young female camel, a dromedary. So going back to First Kings, that would make sense, right? Horses, dromedaries, these are means of transportation. Dromedaries or camels are more so long distance, so not really speed, even though they are pretty fast. They're more so like long distance means of transportation. They brought they onto the place where the officers were, every man according to his charge, right? So they also brought food for Solomon's animals, of course. And God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding, exceeding much, and largeness of heart. So he enlarged King Solomon's mind, which is why he was able to know and understand so much, even as the sand that is on the seashore. So he knew a lot, right? If his mind or his wisdom was compared onto like the sand at the seashore, that's a lot of emphasis on his wisdom. And Solomon's wisdom excelled the wisdom of all the children of the east country and all the wisdom of Egypt, for he was wiser than all men, than Ethan the Ezrahite, and Heman the Calcol, and Darda the sons of Mahol, and his fame was in all the nations round about. Now, these names here, right? Ethan, Heman, Calcol, Darda, these are people that you can imagine being known at the time for their wisdom. Today, for example, somebody might mention Steve Jobs, right? Because, when you think of Steve Jobs, you think of Apple. When you think of Apple, you think of like this super advanced technology, right? iPhones and virtual headsets and all that, right? Then you have, what's the other dude's name? You also have like Einstein, right? You hear Darwin, Einstein, You have these different names, whether, we can get into the whole thing of who they actually were and did they actually come up with these things. But the whole point is you have certain names that are instantly known, right? You mention Einstein, people know. They even make reference jokes about it, right? You mention, Darwin, people know about that. So you can imagine something similar, at this time. You had like Ethan, Haman, Calco, and these were like wise men. So that's why it compares King Solomon and says, in fact, he was wiser than all of these men. And therefore his fame was in all the nations round about. And he spake 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005. And so we have a few of those, right? The book of Proverbs, Songs of Solomon. And he spake of trees, from the cedar tree that is in Lebanon, even unto the hyssop that springeth out of the wall. He spake also of beasts, and of fowls, and of creeping things, and of fishes. So he had that level of understanding, right? He could, speak things in terms of, whether it's just things that are plain facts about these things, unknown traits, or even just riddles, analogies, proverbs, using these things here. So you can imagine, like, Israel at this time was probably like very advanced because of King Solomon. The kind of projects that he would bring, right? The ideas, the system, that was in place. So you can imagine there. Verse 34, and there came of all people to hear the wisdom of Solomon, from all kings of the earth, which had heard of his wisdom. And that brings us to the end of the book of 1 Kings, the 4th chapter. Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha, Kodesh. And until next time, Shalom.